Well, this young lady here apparently wants to study or work from home, and she's being interrupted by annoying noise events. And possibly she's contacting you, the acoustic expert, for assistance because maybe some of these noise events are avoidable. They are for maybe a neighbor who is creating some noise in an inappropriate time or whatever. So she's asking you for help, and you are now challenged with providing a good solution for her. And that is the topic of today's presentation. My name is Marcus. I'm presenting this webinar, and I'm assisted today by Carol, our product manager. He's taking care of the incoming questions. On the left-hand side, you see the topics that we have prepared for today. We start with a brief overview on the motivation, the scope of this presentation. We will then present to you the required equipment for such a noise nuisance recording, how to prepare, how to configure this equipment, how to operate it either off or online, and how to execute the post-processing and the documentation. We have also prepared a practical presentation for you, and after that, I will add some more hints and tips. At the very end, I will take a look at the questions that have popped in and possibly add some more comments. I expect that this webinar will last about half an hour. Well, coming back to the challenge we are facing, we have a client who is living in a house or in an apartment, and he's occasionally confronted with very loud, annoying noise, maybe from a neighbor who starts at 4 a.m. in the morning to drilling holes into the wall or whatever. So this client is contacting you and asks, can you please help me? Well, there is lots of noise around my house, my apartment. Some of them I cannot avoid, traffic noise, for as an example, but some other events possibly are not really legal or can be prosecuted or inhibited with legal means. Well, the challenge apparently is that you, the acoustic expert, when you install such a weekly or maybe even for a month noise monitoring, you want to identify those events that are perceived as especially annoying by your client. And how can you do that? Because there are lots of data, lots of events happening. So what we need a solution where the client can highlight, can pinpoint specific events, and of course, the solution must also be usable for legal prosecution in case that this is necessary. How does the solution look like? First of all, we need a noise monitoring station, a sound level meter that permanently logs the sound levels of relevance. And we need a solution or a feature that allows the user to trigger an audio recording in order to simplify your work so that you can more easily understand what has happened and is that something that we can take actions against. Typical example would be a door slam, maybe at midnight. And here we have the first big challenge, and that is if the door is slammed by a neighbor at midnight, the client wakes up and he triggers this event, but well, then the door has already been slammed. So we need a solution that is able to pre-record the audio data, at least for a couple of seconds before the button has been pressed. And that is what we're going to present to you right now. How does such a system look like? Here we are showing you the XL3 sound level meter, professional device, class 1 type approved. That is what we definitely recommend to you, because if you ever have to go to court or take legal actions, the measurement, the recording must be really bulletproof, must be solid. And for that purpose, you need such a class 1 type approved device. And it must not only be able to log the sound pressure level, the sound levels, but also to record the audio data at these specific events. Furthermore, you need an input keypad, a device that allows the client to trigger such an event, as stated before. So to press a button, for an example. And optionally, you can also install possibly a link of your sound level meter to your PC at home in your office, be it via Wi-Fi or mobile data, just to establish such a remote access that simplifies your work. I will come back to that later. This whole system, maybe you noticed that, is called noise nuisance recording. This is a term that comes from the United Kingdom, where this way of recording sound in the living area of a person, of a client, is specifically defined under a standard, and that is called noise nuisance recording. So let us take a look at the system setup and operation. The first step would be that you, the acoustic expert, prepares the noise nuisance recording system. You configure the sound level meter, so you make sure that the relevant sound levels are being logged, and you physically install the system at the customer site. You make sure that, for instance, the microphone is located in the right place, that there is no wall nearby which could cause reflections or something like that. The second step would be that your customer, the client, triggers an event if he believes that that has exceeded the acceptable range. So he presses, for instance, a button on the keypad, and consequently, the sound level meter will set a marker in the logged data, and it will record the audio data for a predefined duration or until the user has pressed the button again. This is very important because you can imagine such a system possibly is installed in the living room or maybe even in the bedroom of the customer. So you don't want, or the customer does not want, that as a permanent audio recording. But with this solution, we can make sure that only manually triggered events will be audio recorded. Third step, you, the expert, you download data, the level data and the audio recording, and analyze them, for instance, with the Data Explorer software. So here we have two options. Either the data is locally stored on the sound level meter only, then you have to get it from there, or you have a connection from the sound level meter to the cloud and from the cloud to your PC. I will come back to that later. And that makes the second case makes your life, of course, much easier. So let us take a look at the sound level meter settings. How to get there? Here in the sound level meter mode, you have to press this icon here. You see it on the top right side. And then this menu opens, and consequently, you can first of all edit the settings for the report and logging. For instance, the audio recording is only executed if a marker has been set. The audio format should be uncompressed, 24 or 32-bit. Why? Because with the uncompressed data, you can execute a solid and legally binding analysis of the data. Sampling frequency can be selected, the range, and most important, here you define the duration of the pre-recording. You can switch it off, which does not make really sense. More typical would be that you define a duration between 5 and 30 seconds. So that means the last, for instance, 30 seconds before the key has been pressed will be included in the audio recording. Next, you edit the configuration of the markers. Right now, we are limited to the keypad. That will be changed in the near future. We are constantly upgrading our firmware with new features. Also, the operating mode is now limited to toggle, which means the customer presses the button, which starts the recording, and he presses a button again, which stops the recording. Or we have a timeout. That is here the maximum marker duration you see at the bottom. Here we can decide that at latest after 10 minutes, the recording will be stopped. And in between, there is also one setting that says that regardless which key the user is pressing, you have seen there are 4 keys on the keypad. All of them will be treated as marker type key 1. Well, next step is to retrieve the data from the device. Here we have the 2 choices I already introduced you to. First of all, the local data storage on the sound level meter only. Here we have a SD card in the device in the XL3, and the acoustic expert can copy this data either by connecting the device via USB to a PC or by removing the SD card and plugging it to your PC. The second, more comfortable option is that you connect the device online to the cloud, um, either through the built-in Wi-Fi or an external modem, and that gives you, the expert, the access to the device 24/7. You have at any time the possibility to look in the situation, what's going on, what data has been recorded, and you can possibly even start your analysis before the whole recording period has ended. Last step would be the analysis of the data, especially of these events that have been highlighted. And here it is very important for you to know that this must be done according to the locally applicable rules in your country, in your region, because there are many differences from country to country. Um, they have different penalties for instance, the time of day when something is happening, or maybe the tonality plays an important role, or the impulsiveness of the sound, or the percentiles. Well, there are a couple of parameters you might need to uh, take a close look at in your analysis. And this is really important, that you understand what is necessary, that you make yourself acquainted with these requirements and execute your analysis accordingly. It would go too far if I would explain all that to you right now. But what I can tell you is I have already presented a webinar on the use of the Data Explorer software in the past. You will find this recording on our website. And the last step is, having executed this analysis, you establish a professional report. This is actually what your customer, of course, is looking for, because with this report, he can go to the authorities and possibly convince them to take action. And this is also supported with the Data Explorer software. Well, that brings me to my practical presentation. Here on my desk, I have an XL3 sound level meter with the input keypad connected. It is also linked to my PC via Wi-Fi, so that you can see the screen content of the XL3. You're going to see that in a minute. I also have an minirator with me that drives a loudspeaker so that I can create annoying sound. And also I have the Data Explorer software installed. So let me briefly switch over to another view where you're going to see these items here on my desk. Let me start that. Here you see that. Just to flip it, on the right-hand side, the XL3, on the left-hand side, the minirator, in the middle, the keypad. And now I'm going also to show you the screen content of the XL3. Just have to refresh. Yeah, here you see it. So everything what is happening on the XL3, you will see with a maybe short delay in the screen to the left-hand side. So the first thing we would do, we would configure the XL3. And for instance, by pressing on this icon, as I showed to you before, so you see immediately the corresponding menu opens. I can go into report and logging. I have here access to all these settings. And for instance, I can adjust the pre-recording. You see it here. I could switch it off. I can select any time, 5 seconds, 10, 15, 20, or 30. I leave it with 30 seconds, just confirm. So here you have full access to all these different settings. Or you select the markers, and here you have access, for instance, to the source. Right now it is limited to the keypad. The mode, whether all buttons shall be treated as one, as the same. So this is also defined here, or as stated before, the duration of the maximum duration of the marker can be defined here. So this is a kind of a timeout, automatic timeout. I will come back to that later. So you confirm, you go back, and we take a look at the sound level. I have selected two levels here. The LZF could be another one, the LAQ. Keep in mind, this is only the displayed data. In the background, the logged data. There are many more logged data in this device, so you will not miss anything relevant if you start. And that's what I'm going to do. I press the start button, and you see immediately on the bottom left corner, I'm getting the information. The logging is going on. I can see how much time has been elapsed so far. And last but not least, I have here an event counter. This is right now only 0. So we will see what will happen with that later. But now let's wipe over to the next screen. This is the time plot of my level recording. We have the blue curve, the LAQ, so kind of a long-term average, and we have the red curve, the LAF, so a instantaneous level display. If I create a sound, you will see that immediately. Now let's assume that something happens which is perceived as very annoying by the customer. I will now unmute my mini rater, which creates a loud pink noise on the loudspeaker. I have pressed the button. You see here the red light on my input keypad that shows me now the recording is going on. I press the button again, it stops, and now the XL3 has saved this marker, this audio data from this event. If I go back now to my level screen, you see here we have a first event that has been noted, that has been recorded, and the recording, of course, goes on. So that shows you fundamentally the operation of this device. Every time the user feels that something has gone wrong, he presses a button for a second, for more time, whatever he wants, and the system will create the corresponding marker. At the very end, typically after a couple of days or maybe even weeks, we stop the recording, we press the stop button, and now we confirm that all these data shall be saved on the SD card. Maybe one important hint here as well, if there is a blackout, if there is a power down during the monitoring, the data that have been recorded up to that time will not be lost. They are saved on the SD card. This dialogue you just saw is just in addition to make sure that you don't want to cancel the recording, but typically you confirm, of course, and you will not lose any data, even in case of a power down. Okay, now I could upload this file to my PC, but I will rather show you directly a recording that I have done earlier. So I go back here and show you the Data Explorer user interface with the corresponding recording. This was done over 1.5 hours approximately, and you can see there are 4 events that have been highlighted, 4 markers that have been set. Let's take a look at the first one here. We zoom in, and here you notice this was the event that apparently has been perceived as annoying. With a delay of a couple of seconds, the user has pressed the key. So he has set the marker. After a while, he pressed the key again to stop it. But the audio recording, the blue bar up here, shows clearly that with this pre-recording, we have saved the event, what has happened here as well. Although this was the trigger point, this 10 seconds, whatever it is, that happened before are also included in the audio recording. So that's a very comfortable tool that allows you to directly highlight the events that the customer has been um, triggering to, and you're not wasting time in listening to everything up here because you know from the beginning this is irrelevant, this is not important for the customer. Maybe here a second example. I apparently here somebody has pressed the button without any relevant event. Maybe a kid has gone to the room and pressed the button, and so it was not intentional, and it was forgotten to press the button again to stop the recording. But as stated before, after a certain defined timeout period, the recording will end automatically. So nothing will happen. You are um, securing the privacy of your client, or the system does it actually. Yeah, that's this part of my presentation. I will now go back to the PowerPoint. Just a second. So let me add some more hints and tips. Imagine that your client is living in a big building with many apartments, and maybe he has already been discussing with his neighbor about certain events, noise, and maybe there is a kind of a conflict between the two of them, and then your client calls you into the apartment, please install this system. Well, you want to make sure that nobody gets suspicious, and it's quite simple. Rather than carrying this suitcase that I showed you on the picture before into the apartment, you can easily hide it in such a backpack, um, which looks much more normal, less suspicious. It's a kind of a camouflage. Yeah, it's quite regular and quite recommended in many cases, just to make sure that um, nobody would behave awkwardly in order to avoid a problem. Nobody realizes that this monitoring is going on, of course, except of your client. Furthermore, I would suggest that you recommend to the customer, to the client, to silently step away some few steps from the system after having pressed a button, just in order to make sure that there is no interference with the recording, that we have a clean recording of the system, and there is no noise, breathing noise, whatever, audible from the customer. This is really the clean noise of what's going on in that moment from external source. I have mentioned the cloud connection. And this is one of the strong points of the XL3. It is a device with a very good connectivity. Here we have listed a couple of such cloud storage platforms that are supported, to which you can easily upload the data from the XL3 and then download to your PC. If you feel insecure, if you have never done that before, if you do not know how to do it, please don't hesitate. Contact us, contact any of our sales partners. We will be happy to assist you, to guide you through this process. Really simple and very stable. Furthermore, we also strongly recommend to use the Data Explorer software for the post-processing and the reporting. It's a very powerful tool with lots of features, helpful features. We have it's some underlying standards in the software so that you can quickly execute the right steps according to the requirements in your country, in your region. So it's really worth at least trying it out and using it for a while, because it's a really nice tool. And the last point, the last hint I want to give you is, I mentioned that before, there will be more features related to noise nuisance recording in future firmware updates over the XL3. If you have enrolled for our newsletter, you will receive the corresponding information as soon as the firmware update is public, so that you can download it, you can use it on your device. Well, that brings me already to the end of my presentation. Just to remind you, we have a very nice, tight network of sales partners around the world, which you will find on the website listed here on top. If you need some support, please look there, contact the corresponding partner, or send us an email, give us a call. We are always happy to support you. If you're looking for previous webinar recordings, we have them also on our website. You will find them under this link, or on our YouTube channel. And last but not least, if you have the time, we are always happy if you rate us on Google. That would be really appreciated. I would like to thank you very much for your attendance and your interest. I hope I was able to give you a little bit of an inspiration of what this feature can do good for you. And of course, I would be happy to welcome you again at one of our future webinars. Well, for now, thank you very much. Have a good time, stay healthy, and bye bye.